Welcome to Family Twist, a podcast about relatively unusual stories of long-lost families, adoption, and lots of drama. I'm Corey.
And I'm Kendall, and we've been partners for over 16 years.
We're very excited about today's episode because we have someone with another very interesting, astonishing sort of adoption story. A little bit similar to Kendall's, but a little bit different. Kendall's was a closed adoption, and this story is about an open adoption. And so coming to us via Zoom from one of our favorite places in the world, the Bay Area, Sara, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. Hey, from Oakland.
Thank you for hearing your story. It's we talked a little while ago just to kind of get some background, and it's just like, well, your story is still unfolding in real time. So I think it's very cool, and hopefully as things progress, you'd be willing to come back on and share more details. But for today, let's just kind of dig in a little bit into the background. So an open adoption, your mom, at what age did she tell you that she wasn't your birth mother?
I think I would have to pinpoint that around maybe being 3 or 4. So very young. It was probably even before that, but that's the first time that I could remember, hearing the sort of language where it's just like, I'm your mommy, but I didn't carry you in my body. Another woman did, and you're adopted. And I don't even know if adoption was explained to me, but it was more like, I really wanted a baby. And I was so lucky to get you. And it was like, that was kind of the feeling about it. And that's, that was as far back as 3 or 4 years old.
And even before that, your mom was sharing updates about you with your birth mother, correct?
That's right. And in retrospect, it's such a, because I was born in the early 80s, which, I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago, but here we are. But it just seems like a really just progressive, kind of beautiful thing to have happened. So I guess my birth mother and my adopted mother must have decided at some point along the way that every year around my birthday, they would exchange letters. And so my mom would send my birth mother pictures of me and just like a short kind of update of like, this is who Sara's becoming. This is what she likes. This is what she doesn't like. This is her with her dog, those kinds of things. And there was actually a letter that my birth mother sent to my mother, which was given to me on my 18th birthday, which was this just really, really touching, like, this is not going into details, but this is part of why I made this decision. And I'm ready when you are, and, you were loved, and, we're here for you, basically. So a lot of support, a lot of just openness, transparency, and just, the word progressiveness just kind of really comes to mind.
So what was that like for you turning 18 and getting this letter from the woman who gave birth to you and essentially inviting you to be part of her life?
Oh, man, it was, I was not ready. So and I'm sure we'll get more into this, but like I didn't start reaching out to either side of my family until just a couple years ago. And it was overwhelming. I think it was also like the way that the letter was presented to me was just felt kind of like overwhelming. I think my mom was like, here, this is for you. You can read it at any time. And I just kind of like scuttled away with it and read it. But I think, maybe it's temperament, maybe it's just who I am. Maybe it's sort of like my relationship with my mother, which is complicated, as many, family and mother-daughter relationships are anyway. But I was just like, I wasn't ready, and it was too much. I was touched. It validated everything else I had kind of been told in my life. That I was loved, that this was a decision of kind of necessity and sort of what's in the best interest of the child. Everyone was trying to do their best, but it was not something that I was ready to confront or address or even really talk about or anything like that. So it took me decades to kind of come around and be like, I know I'm going to pursue this. I know that this is a gift to kind of have this opportunity to be able to meet my biological mother, my biological family. I know I'm going to get there, but I'm not going to rush myself, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally up to you. So let me go back a little bit. Did you know as a child that there was this exchange of letters happening around your birthday every year?
Oh, good question. Yes, I think I did. I think I did. And I say I think I did because I don't have any memory of, I wasn't involved in like the picture selection or the letter writing. It was sort of like, I think but I am having some kind of memories of my mom saying, "Oh, it's got your birthday. I'm going to write to Marie." That's my birth mother's name. I think she might have invited me to be like, "Do you want to say anything?" And me, again, like temperament, I'm kind of a shy person naturally. And I was just like, no, no, I don't want to. But it wasn't something that I was really actively involved with.
Over time, different times, would you ask your mom questions about the adoption, about Marie, what was in the letters, that sort of thing? Like, were you inquisitive about that side of the family?
Yeah. And I think especially when I was younger, when I passed like the 3-4 age of just the acceptance of like, oh, this is who I am. And I'm different. And this is the way that I'm different. Which obviously comes with its own sort of host of special kind of challenges that didn't quite sink in until later. I think I must have been asking questions and just sort of like, because I had pictures of her and we look very similar. And I knew from her letters, the basic stuff. She really liked animals. She became a lawyer. She did things like that. But I don't remember asking like more detailed information than that. And as I'm kind of talking about it, and as you asked me that, I think something that I can attribute to it is, just this feeling of like, this is just part of my life. This is sort of who I am. And I didn't really feel like I was for want of anything or lack of anything, or, I don't know. It was just sort of like just part of my story.
Right.
I think again, as I sort of started to get older and realized, I'm quite different from my mother, but that happens in, biological families anyway. Like starting to get to know myself a little bit more. That's when I really started to get curious. But I was older. I was like kind of past 18, and it was very just in the back of my mind. Like, again, I know I have this opportunity. Maybe I'll just wait to meet her and just sort of ask her myself, those kinds of things. But I was given a fair amount of information about both of my parents, the nature of the adoption, the nature of their relationship, just sort of my mother's impressions of them as they met while my birth mother was pregnant, and the adoption was kind of going forward because it was arranged before I was born. So
Okay.
it was almost like that was enough for me until I was kind of ready to take on a little bit more.
Interesting. I didn't know that they had met and that it was kind of okay. Wow.
Yeah. It's a really, I feel like I need to get a little bit more information about this part of it, but it seems like in comparison to today, for example, where people are on lists and there's just these hoops to jump through and like, psychological exams and things like that. My mom didn't go through any of that. She just kind of hooked up with an agency, and it was a little bit of a matching process in terms of, the parents decide they meet a couple of prospective adoptive parents and people, and it's almost like an interview process, but it was very vibes based, is what it felt like. And that was that. I mean, my mom did remark how kind of seamlessly and kind of quickly, she wasn't even with that agency for very long. And then it just sort of happened. Yeah.
Wow.
So really very different from today is what it seems like. Very, very also kind of a different kind of a story in terms of just how smoothly it seemed to go.
So a couple years ago, when you decided to pursue things a little bit further, was there like an experience, an incident, a revelation? What was it that made you decide this is time?
Oh, 1,000% yes. So looking back, it was like there were definite stepping stones that I don't think I realized at the time were the path forward. So like the transparency around me being adopted, the kind of conversations I had as I was younger, the fact that I was, able to have that as part of my identity as I went out into the world and, interacted with others and lived my life. But then it was really the kind of invention of 23andMe that was the final kind of stepstone that happened. So my mom saw that and she was just like, but she got it for me as a present. She was like, oh, let's do it, like, let's see. Cause again, we knew, kind of verbally what like my genetic background was. But it's always, it was always something of a mystery because we just didn't really know for sure and couldn't trace it back. And so it was cool. Like we were both really excited to do it. And then, but this was like right when it came out. So the registry was much smaller. And it was like, once I got my results back, everything was basically, confirmed at least, like genetics wise, like, half Mexican, part Spanish, part English, in Irish, like all of those things were sort of verified. But there was a matching feature where it was just like, you have a genetic relative and here's a match. But it was like fifth cousins and, third, twice removed. And I just wasn't as interested in that. So I let that account sit and I'm trying to think, have I had the account for almost 10 years? I'm not sure when 23andMe came out, but quite some time, just kind of let it lapse. I was like, yeah, just sort of told me info I already knew. Kind of cool to see some percentages and like parts of the world that my DNA is from, but like whatever. And what really kind of brought it home was when I went to graduate school. And I went to graduate school to become a social worker. One of my classes was family therapy. And one of the exercises that we had was doing a genogram. And I guess for anybody that doesn't know, a genogram is basically a family history of, tracing back all of your relatives through marriage and through just like family of origin, like siblings, cousins. And it's this mapped out visual kind of thing. And I had done family trees before. I mean, that's very much a part of just like being a kid. It was always super traumatic for me and caused me a lot of anxiety because, even though my adoption story was very transparent, there was a lot of love, it othered me. I mean, other children don't necessarily understand that. It's not the norm. It is a marginalized kind of way to grow up. And so I had some feels around it, right? And I always would do but when I had to do those assignments, I always did my adopted family. So I would do my mom's side. I wouldn't have a dad's side because she adopted me as a single woman, and I grew up as a single child, single parent dynamic. And so yeah, I do those grandparents. My mom's sister and my cousins, and that was that. But this time, when I was presented with the opportunity to do another sort of family history genogram, I decided to do everybody. So I did my biological dad's side to the best of my ability, my biological mom's side to the best of my ability, and my adoptive family. So I had these three like parts of myself visually. I'm actually looking at it right now because it's like it was really this moment where I was just like, whoa, there's so much that's out there to just kind of like, I don't know, explore about this. But then, and this was sort of like the I don't even know what to call it, like the miracle piece, like the universe talking back. I'm not entirely sure. Within the same month, and I believe it was like the month of April, on 23andMe, I was contacted by a first cousin on my biological mother's side of the family. And I found I was matched with a first cousin on my biological dad's side of the family. Within a week or two of each other, I started talking to both of them. I was like, you'll never believe it. I was just starting to work on this project for school. Can I ask you things? Like, is it okay? Do you want to meet? Like, wow. And it was just so meant to be. I can't think of another way to describe it. It felt right. The timing was right for me. I was curious. I felt like I had a really good solid sense of self where I could just be like, okay, let's explore. And it was amazing. It was quite literally an amazing, amazing kind of moment.
I like to say DNA magic. I think that's one of the things that we use.
I love that. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm curious, did your biological cousins know that you existed?
On my mother's side, uh, I think she did, but it was sort of it was vague. It was in the background. Both families are quite large too. So I think she kind of knew, but she didn't really know my mother. I think she was a cousin, maybe not on even that side, like cousin by marriage. But she, as soon as I started saying, like the names and kind of the players involved, she was like, oh yeah, I know exactly like where you kind of fit in. I don't think that she knew that my mother, gave me up for adoption. I don't think that she knew that story. And there was some sort of like navigating on my end where it's just like the fact that I'm making contact with a cousin first and not my birth mother first. I definitely like felt some type of way of that. I felt like, ooh, careful, like don't step on any toes, like to, go at a kind of pace, like kind of feel it out. My cousin on my father's side, kind of similarly, her father is my father's brother. Yes, that makes us cousins. That's right. That tracks. But her father had moved away from Texas, where all of our family had been when he was quite young. And I don't exactly know the details around that, but I do think that part of it was just like he didn't want to be close to family anymore. So I don't know that she knew about me specifically, but she knew about my dad, and she knew about my dad's kind of Rolling Stone tendencies, as it were, and just like he had his own sort of legend in the family of being this like kind of very powerful, prominent sort of Lothario type figure. So I don't think that she was surprised by any means, but like she could kind of trace it back to him and be like, yeah, okay, I never met your father, but I know of your father, and like our fathers are brothers.
For that, go ahead.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm just realizing that she put me in touch with my half sister on my father's side, which really kind of like broke open everything, because my sister could like, tell me more. My sister did know about me. I learned that I have 7 siblings at least that we know of. I have an older sister. She, I think, knew about me, and then I learned that my aunts, I had 2 aunts and my grandma knew about me. They had pictures of me. My grandma, when I was able to Zoom with her, actually, during the pandemic, unfortunately, I was going to go out there, but the vid just got us all.
Right.
So when I Zoomed with her, she was like, I've prayed like for you to come back to us. I've prayed to meet you. And I was just floored, because my dad, open adoption, right? My dad never kept in touch. My birth mom did, but my birth dad never kept in touch. And yet he had kept pictures of me. He had a scrapbook of me. He told family about me. It was just like this whole sort of, it's a whole thing. And I haven't met him either. So I don't know quite what that's about. I haven't met either of my birth parents yet. But there's definitely some stuff there.
Yeah, there's some stuff to unpack, as you think. So, did you know much about his reputation as a Lothario before you? Okay, all right.
I did. So my mom, oh my gosh. So my mom is a total character. She's a really interesting person. And I bet I'll throw it out there. I bet that she would love to be interviewed or be a part of this process. I think that she could really bring some more color to my story. But she I think that again, this interview process really intrigues me because from it, she was able, either he was really forthcoming or they were really forthcoming or they really got along, or it was a completely different adoption process because my dad was just like, yeah, like this isn't my only child. This isn't my only like partner. What did he say? He mentioned something about like not selling weed per se, but like drug dealing, like being involved in certain things to the point where like, my mom, as I got older, my mom would kind of tell me this stuff. And I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. But as an adult, I'm just like, whoa, like who would reveal that kind of information during, hey, I don't know, during an adoption process, during a place where, a baby's being placed or even as yourself, like this is the self that you're presenting. So I think he just owned it and he just like was an interesting person. And there's much more that I learned from my sister too. But
well, clearly that didn't scare your mom off.
Oh, that what? Sorry.
That didn't scare your mom off from the adoption.
She's a character. She's a character. She's a character. It's something.
Did they reveal like when your mom went through the interview process, were they still together as a couple or no? They were.
They were. So, and it was actually I've met my maternal grandma. I actually she's the only member of my family besides my cousin and my sister, that I've actually been able to physically meet, which has been just incredible. That's a whole other story. It's a whole other story. But she told me a little bit more about their relationship because I was curious about that. I knew that they weren't married, that I was a surprise. My mother was in undergrad at Cal, just being a student, and I think becoming involved in politics. I learned from an aunt that my aunt thinks that they met at a Jerry Brown like fundraiser or campaigning event, which again just like blows my mind. I'm like, I don't understand. Anyway, so that's what my mom was up to. She was like 20, 21 at the time. My father was significantly older. He was in his early 30s, 30, something like that, and doing whatever he was doing at the time and place, right? At the Jerry Brown campaign, with his whole situation. And so when my mother found out that she was pregnant, at first, the idea was that they were going to get married. And I'm assuming, I'm kind of filling in the blanks here, but I am assuming that that's why she maybe went ahead with the pregnancy. There's also, I know that she was raised Catholic. I don't know if that came into play. I haven't been able to kind of suss out that part of it. But well into the pregnancy, I would imagine at least 6 months, something like that. My dad told my mom that he was already married and had a child in San Diego and could not go through with this relationship, but that he would stay with her until I was born. Like there was love. My grandmother confirmed, because she had met him and seen them together, that there was love there. There was something real that was there that was kind of binding them together. It was maybe just like a not meant to be situation, obviously. But at that point, my mother being so young, finishing school, probably feeling incredibly betrayed and brokenhearted by the entire thing, was like, okay, what's the best decision for me and what's the best decision for this baby? And he stayed with her, and they stayed together for a little while afterwards. But that was really me being born, and I think going through that experience for them, and him being married, right, was the final end of their affair. And I think that he moved either back to San Diego or to Texas after that. He wasn't in California anymore.
Well, I mean, at least Papa's Rolling Stone didn't take him before you were born, right? Younger then.
Yes. Yes.
So let me dig a little bit into your father's side. So the half sister that you met, is that the older sister, or is it one of the younger sisters, or?
Yeah, so she is my younger sister. She's the third of the seven, as it were. Like, I'm sure there's more, right? But I'll just say the seven that I'm aware of. And my older sister and I just recently connected through 23andMe. But the sister that I have met and I have a relationship with now is my younger sister by a couple of years.
Okay. And what was her relationship like with your father?
Oh, from what I understand, very, very, very troubled, toxic, abusive, neglectful. She and my brother, they're the only siblings that are full blood siblings of his, and they were same woman, same mother. And they are the only two that he really, I think, raised for a prolonged period of time. But when I say raised, it was like because he was involved with, I don't know if it was drug trafficking or what his role was exactly, but I can confirm that he was involved with a Mexican drug cartel. And so my sister grew up in a town in Texas that was kind of close to the border. My father's family comes from the Nuevo Leon region in Monterrey, Mexico. I don't even know if it was like a cartel that was sort of based out of there or if he was involved with something else. But, I think it was just not, it was not a safe environment. It was not a healthy environment. And when she was quite young, I don't even know if she was 18 at the time, she told me that she had a new baby in tow and she got herself to a Greyhound station, pretty much just like closed her eyes, picked a place, bought a one-way ticket and ended up in Oregon and just sort of started a new life there. And that's where she's been ever since. She is an amazing person, probably the strongest person I think that I know. And I know that kind of talking about this sort of stuff is difficult for her. So I just have kind of like, the bits and pieces, but it definitely verified some of the other kind of like question mark information that I was given where it was like, pop sounds kind of something. Like, I don't really know what's going on here, but she also, it was interesting. She filled in some other details where it was just like, he's incredibly intelligent, taught himself 4 languages, survived a tour in Vietnam later in the war when it was just like a complete disaster, but survived, came back, was different, for sure. But, and was into like plant medicine, which I think is what the weed talk with my mom might have been in the adoption process, where it was just like, my sister kind of described him as this visionary person where it was just like, weed will be legalized at some point. It does have medicinal properties. Like, I'm growing it. I use it in this way. But also he, incredibly problematic person, incredibly flawed, dangerous, problematic person. And so the way that she gave me that information and then she was like, I would never tell you not to meet him because he is your father. He is our father. But I will say, be careful. I will say, just understand that, you're kind of dealing with somebody that, has really deep issues. And I was like, okay, all right, fair enough.
Your knowledge, do any of your siblings on your dad's side have a relationship with him?
Yes. So my youngest brother lives with him right now at this point. I actually heard, my sister told me that he recently went into the hospital. I'm not sure why. She doesn't really have details. I haven't really asked my aunts about it because they too have a complicated relationship with him. So I don't know. It's again with this, just like not stepping on toes, kind of trying to figure out my place, navigate my role in all of this. But yeah, my younger brother was living with him and I think kind of like acting as like caretaker slash, just like person with him. Yeah. But I think that's the only child that was really having anything to do with him. And I also think that's because he's young. I don't know if he's 18 yet.
Okay. Do you know, is your father aware that you've been in touch with some family?
Uh-huh. Yep. And I found this out. So my aunts are, I think, a little more protective. My sister obviously is protective and just like not in touch. But grandma, of course, this is her son. This is her baby. As soon as she found out that I was around and in the picture and trying to make contact, I think she called him pretty much right away and was just like, "She's here," and gave him my phone number. And on my birthday a couple of years ago, I get this text from a random number I didn't see with pictures of myself, which is how I know he has pictures of me. And because I didn't recognize the number, I immediately thought to my adoptive aunt for some reason, who, was just like, hey, sweet, I forget it. He didn't say sweetie, but it was just like, happy birthday. So grateful for you. Or it was something effusive. It was something personal. And I was like, Auntie, like, what? You never text me. I don't understand. And then I was like, who is this? And it was like, this is your father. And I was just like, oh shit, and I immediately was just like, I'm not ready, like all of that stuff of just like, reading the letter from my mom and kind of gathering this more information about my dad, like all that, the exact same feeling of just like being shy and kind of climbing up and like, no, not yet. No, not yet. And so I texted him back and I was just like, wow, thank you for this. Yes, I'm talking to grandma and I'm talking with aunties. And maybe one day soon we can think about connecting. I'm just not ready yet. And he's honored it, which I think I was a little surprised about given what I learned. I didn't really know what to expect, but I haven't heard back from him since.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch gears to your birth mother's side. Now, did she have any other children?
No, I was the only one.
Okay. And you've met her mothers. You've met your grandma on her mother's side. Yeah. What was that?
Oh my gosh. The phrase that comes to mind really is like coming home. I mean, she actually reminded me of my godmother, which was really funny and kind of interesting. Just this very like sharp as a tack, kind of salty, kind of like sarcastic, just like fiery, kind of spicy person. Doesn't take any shit. Tell you what, like fifth, sixth generation farmer, from Yuba County, like farm family, very kind of, like blue collar, hardworking ethics, but also just like a ton of curiosity, just like so intellectually curious and just reading constantly and very civically involved. And like her and my grandpa were fixtures in their community, really well-known fixtures. And it was my cousin. It was my cousin on my mom's side who set us up together or gave me her information. So I reached out to her and she also was like, I've been hoping, I've been waiting, I've been wondering, but I always, wanted it to be your mom's kind of thing, her decision, but I'm just so glad. I'm just so glad that you reached out. When can we meet? Basically. So it was very quick from there. I went up there. We spent the whole afternoon together. It was like we fell into a groove. It was, tell me, what are your interests and tell me about your life. But it was also just like, it was as if we had known each other for, maybe not forever, but like, there was a really, there was an ease, there was a simpatico, there was a sort of just like,
That's awesome.
Familiarity.
Wow. So when you were with your grandmother, did you talk about the possibility of meeting your birth mother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We both, and again, it's like nature, nurture. I don't know if this is just like how my family is or just, I don't know, but we approached it in a very similar kind of like sideways way where it wasn't very direct. It wasn't just like, where's my mom, what's going on. It was, I should back up. I should back up. I think part of the reason why we were kind of being careful about the topic of my mother and just sort of like wading into too much information about her is I actually did reach out to my mother first before the 23andMe stuff because I had her address, I had that letter. It was the same time frame as when it was maybe like, I don't know, not too long before the 23andMe like dual miracle DNA connection stuff happened.
Yeah.
But I reached out via mail. I wrote a letter back and I was like, I'm ready when you are. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. And I didn't hear back. And I tried again and I didn't hear back. So, and I wasn't, it was a surprise. I think if anything, now that I'm saying it, that kind of spurred my curiosity even more to sort of figure out the rest of the story.
You had the letter, right? You had, the letter was an invitation.
Yeah, the letter was an invitation, but it was an invitation that was from very long ago. And also, so it was like, I had this sort of like, I'm surprised, but I want to know more. Like, I'm not going to let this sort of stop me. So there was that sort of motivation, that permission I almost gave myself to like go meet my grandma and not feel guilty or weird or just like stop. So kind of bringing it back to meeting grandma and touching on the subject of mom, I told her that much. I was like, I want you to know that I did reach out to her. And I want you to know that because I want to be respectful of this whole process. Like, this obviously is a life-changing, incredibly difficult, incredibly personal thing for her, for me, for everybody involved. And if there was this invitation and she didn't get back to me, I'm sure there's a reason for it. And my grandma kind of went into some detail, which is that my mom is suffering from some pretty serious health issues, like enough where she had to quit her job. Like, she was a public defender down in Orange County, which I'm sorry, that can't be easy just as it is.
Right.
She was on this actual trajectory to becoming a judge and then like kind of being groomed to become a state Supreme Court justice. Like, she was on this incredible career path. And then something, some health stuff happened and she had to kind of quietly step away. And I think it was almost like she was right there towards this kind of monumental life goal. And so I don't know, that's just kind of where she's at right now. But I think the way my grandma kind of left it was like, she's going to do her, that's okay, but we're going to do us. And we're going to like, I for sure want to keep, getting to know you and talking to you and like having a relationship with you and like, you're welcome here anytime. And, that kind of thing.
Wow. So, I mean, as I mentioned before, this is all still unfolding, but like, where are you today? Like, how are you feeling today about this experience and getting to know both sides of the family?
I remain incredibly excited and just grateful and humbled, I think, by the whole thing. That doesn't even encompass it. Those are just like, it really is like, especially is that because I'm approaching 40, I'm turning 40 this year, and I'm super excited about it. But it's like, there's almost like this second act of my life, at least, that's going to start unfolding, and I can get to know all of these amazing members of my family. And a large part of that is I've just been so incredibly lucky that the connectivity between us has been effortless. We get in a room together. When I met my sister and my cousin on my dad's side, same day, we all were just like, let's meet at a coffee shop. Let's just see how it goes in a public place. We ended up spending the entire day together. We were talking about getting like a hotel room, spending even more time together. Like, we were thick as thieves. We were in a Lyft car together. And the driver was like, oh, is y'all doing a family reunion? We almost started crying. We were like, we are. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Like, how did you know? And this just keeps happening. It's like, and I don't think that that's everyone's experience per se. It might not be that way with other members of my family as I keep going, but it's just been so incredibly encouraging. And I was trying to go out to Texas and meet my grandma and meet my aunts in 2020 when COVID came around. So I feel like I've just been waiting, like I'm so grateful to be in touch with my grandma. I can go physically see my grandma, but like, I'm just at the beginning and I am just so excited, so excited about it.
Well, we're thrilled that you're willing to share your experience, because I think that there are, I mean, as we tell Kendall's story and hear other stories, like there's a lot of people out there that have something going on, and they, maybe they haven't done the 23andMe or Ancestry. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, you could do Ancestry now too and see if others pop up on there, because some people do 23andMe and some people do Ancestry. So, but part of the reason we're doing this is to really help other people kind of like get to some sort of comfort level and, open up to asking questions and kind of like, taking baby steps and doing it for, the right way for them. But I think just you sharing your story and other people sharing their story is only going to help people be able to do that. So thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. I think that this is just just echoing what you're saying. This is such necessary work that you're doing to just kind of, make this more and more known, make these conversations happen more. Everyone's an individual with this. And yet we are all kind of in the same boat. I was just like, whoa, and family is so powerful. Family is so powerful. If I've learned anything from this experience, it's that absolutely you can, have a family of choice and you can make that happen. And it's like, and also there's something incredibly powerful about blood family. And there is like certain truths there. There are other things there. And it's just, it's really made me think about nature versus nurture and just life in general. It's become a very just cool and interesting thing to talk about. And I love the fact that you're starting these conversations. I love it. I think it's so important. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, we're learning something every day about this as we go through this journey. It's been incredible. And so I don't think this is going to be the last time we have you on the podcast, because I think there's going to be so much to talk about. And certainly if your mom wants to come on, if your siblings want to come on, your cousin, your aunties, your grandmas, that would be so cool. Because it's, I think people need to hear, the good stuff too. There's always going to be, not everything is going to be perfect, but I think people really need to hear the good stuff too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm happy to share them with you and with everyone if they're willing to. And I'm also happy to kind of dive into, it wasn't all sunshine and roses for me, right? Like there were other parts of this that were incredibly difficult, and I think led to me needing to take decades in order to be ready to kind of come around and do this. So I definitely want to I'm open to talking about that as well. And just sort of maybe, it'll spark something for someone else out there that's kind of having this, for lack of a better word, like germination moment, this kind of cocoon moment with themselves, and wondering if that's okay. It's like, I'm here to tell you it's completely okay. Like, listen to your heart for sure. Like, it's worth it. But I'm happy to talk more about that too.
Perfect. Well, we'll wrap this up here. Will you do me a big favor and give our love to Oaktown, because we miss it?
Always.
I'll be there in June. I'm looking forward to visiting and catching up with folks. So
yes, that sounds great. And that's when my birthday is too. So I don't know if that's going to coincide, but that would be really
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
We will connect offline and for sure. Well, Sarah, thank you again for joining us, and we're looking forward to talking to you again very soon.
Oh, thanks so much, Corey, Kendall. I can't thank you. I said it before, but I will say it again. Thank you for doing this work. Truly.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is the Family Twists podcast, hosted by Kendall and Corey Stultz, with original music by Cosmic Afterthoughts, and produced by Outpost Productions and presented by Savoir Faire Marketing Communications. Have a story you want to share? Visit FamilyTwistPodcast.com. All our social media links are there as well.